Hi everyone, my name is Amy Young. I am a fourth grade Title I teacher / inclusion resource teacher here in Florida. I'm also a student at Florida International University where I just completed some research. I studied the effects of art therapy on students with autism in an educational setting. So just a little bit more background on the topic. Students with autism have deficits in social and communication skills that cause them to struggle a little bit more with those collaborative learning activities with peers in the inclusive setting. So through a lit review, I found that many studies have actually been conducted already regarding the use of various arts integrated techniques that could lead to growth in those social behaviors and relational perceptiveness that's not naturally acquired by students with autism spectrum disorder. All of this led me to the research question: can structured art therapy approaches affect the social behaviors of students with autism in order to engage in cooperative learning and in an inclusive setting? There were 3 fourth grade participants, all diagnosed with ASD and participating in regular education classroom settings. They took part in daily collaborative arts integration lessons that were first modeled by an arts integration specialist from the district and then co-taught by the regular education teacher and special education teacher within that inclusive setting. Weekly social skills were conducted privately with the special education teacher as well, in which they responded to the art therapy prompt, "Draw a person in the rain," in their art journals. Here's a little bit of a closer look at those specific techniques that were used. So first, each lesson started with a concentration circle. This is a strategy that was adapted from Sean Lane's Focus 5 Arts Integration curriculum. And then the lesson sequence was planned through a collaboration between that inclusion teacher, regular education teacher, and the district arts integration specialist to provide that inclusive drama-based arts integrated learning. The students were explicitly taught about the importance of facial expressions, keeping a focal point, body language, and cooperative communication skills with the participants in their groups. And then each group, using those modeled procedures for peer communication, they were each able to create original dramatic expressions that were based on the curriculum that was taught. After each of those lessons, students were able to respond reflectively in their arts journals, which leads me to a few of our data collection tools. There were 3 different methods for collecting data, the first of which included student art response journals. Here are some of the examples of the journal entries that students completed on a weekly basis to the same art therapy prompt, "Draw a person in the rain." Based on these prompts, I was able to use the rubric for negative behavior indicators to tell me different things that might theoretically indicate negative behaviors such as anxiety, depression, isolation. Each of these could be determined by looking at specific things in the drawing, such as colors, the quality of lines, page placement of the subject. Also, there were specific indicators just for that art therapy prompt, "Draw a person in the rain," that would indicate specific behaviors, as well as how they drew their subject within that page placement, and the facial expressions, body language that they chose to include could be indicative of certain behaviors listed here. So each of the behaviors was rated on a scale from not evident to always evident, and the behaviors included anxiety, depression and sadness, shyness, anger and aggression, inattention, insufficiency, and isolation. So for each weekly prompt, based on those diagnostic indicators, I was able to come up with a score of those indicators each week. Here's an example of one of those art therapy prompt responses. So this person included a lot of cross-hatching, a large number of raindrops in isolation. Their subject had an absence of gear, the left side page placement, the thick ground line that they chose to draw, and the zigzag lines are all indicative of specific negative behaviors that are outlined on that rubric. The second tool that I used to collect data was TPS. It's a behavior rating program used by the district in which teachers are able to input ratings for each of the targeted increasing and decreasing behaviors for each student for each period within the school day. So for example, this student is receiving ratings for the 3 increasing behaviors on their behavior plan and then the 3 decreasing behaviors on his or her behavior plan. So the teacher was able to rate them from a scale of 0 to 3, 0 not being evident, and 3 a high level of incidence. And this template generates a percentage for each of those behaviors that tells the percent of incidence rating. The third data collection tool I used was social skills rating scales, which were administered to each teacher monthly throughout the course of the study. They provided subscores for social skills, problem behaviors, and academic competence. So the results of each of these data collection tools are outlined here. And you can see that specifically for the social skills rating scales, these results indicated that social skills growth was less influenced as compared to the greater consistent change in decreasing problem behaviors. Both sides produced a change, but it seemed that it was more difficult to be able to impact the generation of those social skills as compared to being able to impact the negative behavior skills. For example, Student 2 had an overall increase in social skills of 0.04 of a point. So you can see the blue bars went up just a little bit. And then the problem behaviors decreased by 0.1 of a point. So this was a much more significant change. And that was relevant across the board for each of the 3 students. The TPS behavior tracking system showed an average growth in rating percentages for increasing target behaviors of 36.3% across all 3 students, and also a decline in those decreasing behaviors of 26% across all 3 of the students. 2 of the students specifically were able to actually reverse the rate of incidence from beginning with a higher level of decreasing behaviors and a lower level of those increasing behaviors to toward the end of the study, we have a 92% rating of incidence of the increasing behavior and a 22% rating of incidence for the decreasing behaviors. So you can see that this rate was actually inverted and changed so that the increasing behaviors are more prevalent than the decreasing by the end of the study. This was also consistent with student number 3. As far as the art therapy negative behavior indicators rubric scores go, the top models show that different students exhibited different trends for specific indicators. So, for example, this student showed that the level of depression was consistent in the beginning of the study, but gradually began to decrease toward the end. Each of the students had different indicators that were remaining constant and different indicators that were becoming impacted by the intervention. There was a decrease in average score of negative behavior indicators of 0.69, 0.72, and 0.43 points respectively. Student 1, 2, and 3 each showed a decrease of those indicators in their art therapy prompts by the end of the study. There were some limitations within the study, including that flexible scheduling with all collaborative parties made that intervention timing really difficult. This just included absences and struggles being able to schedule planning times with each of the 3 teachers that were responsible for providing instruction. Daily changes in student mood, home events, emotional factors, all of these can impact data, especially since we're studying those behavior impacts and influences. Those can be changed on a day-to-day basis with outside factors being variables there. And then many other interventions were being implemented simultaneously for each of these 3 students, so change in their behaviors can't solely be attributed to this single intervention strategy. The data could be a reflection of a combination of all of the strategies that are being used to target those behaviors for those students. The small sample size was also a limitation here, considering we started with more participants, but with students moving, changing class settings and placements, we ended up with only 3 students being able to take part in this study. And the social skills rating scales also provide parent surveys as well, but it was difficult to receive that feedback from the parents consistently. As far as implications go for further studies, they should include a more controlled use of the intervention. The results from this study indicated that it could be a promising strategy to use in the inclusive setting, but we would need to have more research to conduct studies with larger scaled participants, varying schools, grade levels, students from different backgrounds, and then it would be ideal to have separate studies for drama-based arts integration as well as visual arts integration to differentiate the impact of each of those separately. And then also a data control group set would also be relevant as a comparison to that focal group. So back to the original question, can structured art therapy approaches affect social behaviors of students with autism in order to engage in cooperative learning in an inclusive setting? As a conclusive answer, I would say that the results did indicate growth in the social skills areas and that negative behaviors did decrease as measured by those multiple data collection tools used, and that this proposes the conclusion that arts integrated techniques could theoretically be a promising strategy to help students with autism spectrum disorder engage appropriately in those cooperative group learning sessions with peers in the inclusive classroom. However, at this time, further research would need to be conducted in order to support the specific terms of the intervention. Thanks so much for watching.